Hello and welcome to class 5 of my intermediate level English class, or English course, sorry. It was a bit of an impromptu class today. Normally I do the class later, but today I wanted to do it a little bit earlier. So let's begin by seeing who we have in the chat. And we have Alvaro from Uruguay. Also we have Javier from Spain. Yeah, it's a good time for people in Spain because Spain is, I think, 6 hours ahead. So it's 12:30 here. I think it's 6:30 in Spain. 6:30 in Spain. Who else? Jordan from Nicaragua, yeah. Nydia from, where are you from, Nydia? Santiago from, where are you from, Santiago? Nydia, where are you from, Nydia? And Middleton, where are you from, Middleton? I'm from El Salvador, nice to meet you. Anybody, so we got 2 people from Central America, and 1 person from Spain and 1 person from South America. Anybody else? Santiago from Mexico. Claudia, where are you from, Claudia? Where are you from? Colombia, somebody from Colombia, somebody from Mexico, Edwin from Mexico, somebody from Chile. So people from everywhere, well, everywhere in America and Europe. We don't have anyone from Asia or Africa. Do we have anyone from Asia or Africa? I don't think so. Or Australia. Do we have anyone from Australia? Nobody. Well, today in this class we are going to continue looking at the past tenses, the past simple, the past continuous. Oh, from Monterey. Yes, I'm in Monterey too, Claudia. So from the in this class, sorry, I was distracted. In this class we are going to be looking once again at the past tenses. The reason that I want to look at them again is that in the last class I had some questions. I explained the tenses. We saw a story in the 3 tenses: past simple, past continuous and past perfect. And then we had some questions. I didn't complete all the questions because I ran out of time. And secondly, people didn't, there were a lot of mistakes with the questions, so I wanted to go over this again because I don't think most of the people who were watching really understood it. Hi. We've got Meligles or something from Venezuela and Marlene from Peru. So we're going to continue. So let's have a look. First of all, let's start with the past simple again. So I think it's better if I put this on a different page. So let's just add another page here and copy this and put it there. We'll begin with the past simple again. Oh, that's not right, sorry. Let's copy all that. Let's begin with the past simple. So the past simple, we've seen the past simple many times before. We've seen the past simple in level A1, and also we saw the past simple in level A2. And here we're looking at the past simple again because we want to see how we use it with the other tenses, how it relates to the other 2 tenses that we're looking at today in the past continuous and the past perfect. So this is basically a summary of the past simple. We use the past simple to talk about completed actions in the past. So this must be in the past. We must have, when we use the past simple, we must have a relationship with the past. So normally, this has been messed up now. Let me just tidy this up a bit. Here we have an example. We went out last night. So here's the verb. It's in the past simple. This verb is an irregular verb. Can anybody tell me the present of this verb? Can anybody tell me the present of this verb? Let's make this a bit bigger because last time there were complaints about the text. So let's move that down there, because right now we're concentrating on this bit here. We went out last night. This is a sentence in the past simple, yeah, and Amiglis, I think is the name, has got it right. Went is the past of go. Now that is an irregular verb in the past. If we have down here, we can see a regular verb. We'll look at this sentence in a minute, but let's put this verb here. This is a regular verb. So remember, regular verbs end in ed, but irregular verbs, you need to learn them. And somewhere in my website, I put a link underneath this, a link to the irregular verbs, or just Google irregular verbs English, because at this level you need to learn the basic irregular verbs. So here in this, going back to, let's return to this sentence here, a sentence in the simple past. We went out last night. It's a finished activity. It's completed. Here, last night is a time reference. Normally in any sentence we're going to have a time reference that indicates what tense we need to use. Last night is finished time, so that's why we need to use the past simple. What other time references could we use with the past simple? We could use last night is finished time, always with the past simple, finished time. Yesterday is finished. Last year, up here we could say last night, last week, last year. It's always going to be in the simple past. Last night, last week, last year, yesterday, or a time. 1979 is finished. Last 1979, the 19th century. The 19th century is finished. These are all time references in the past simple. Last month, Jordan has put, hi Fernando from Uruguay, and hi Julio from Venezuela, Clarissa from Nicaragua, hi. So basically the past simple with finished time, with time references in the past, finished time. You can't use the past simple with today, because today is not finished. So this is the basic use of the past simple. It's a revision because we have seen this tense before in level A1 and in level A2. When we tell a story or a narrative, we use the past simple to talk about events in a chronological order. Maybe I should just put there the word order, because I missed that. In chronological order. That is one thing after another. For example, here's an example here. Let's put a face there. I got up at 6 a.m. this morning. I had breakfast and then I left for work. Got up is in the past simple. Had is also another verb in the past simple, and then left, another word in the past simple. All of these three verbs incidentally are irregular verbs. Who can tell me the present? Got up, the first verb here, got up, is what we call a phrasal verb. Phrasal verb, it's a verb with two parts. We saw that phrasal verbs in level A2. So, hi, nice to meet you, Fernando. So first of all, before we continue, these three verbs here are irregular verbs in the past simple. Who can tell me the present of got up? What's the present of got up? Got up is the verb we use when we get out of bed in the morning. Yeah, very good. Amiglis, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Get up is a phrasal verb, a verb with two parts, and the past is got up. What about the other two? Had is the past of have. Very good. All of these are irregular verbs. And left, what's left the past of? Anybody? The answer is leave. So let's go back to, these are irregular verbs in the past. Irregular verbs in the past. So let's go back to this using the past to talk about events in chronological order. I got up at 6 a.m. This is the first thing that happened in the past. Then after that, I had breakfast. This is the second thing that happened. And then I left for work. This is the third thing that happened. 3 things in chronological order. This happened at 6 a.m. This happened at 6:15. And this happened at 6:30. I'm using the past simple, just the past simple, to talk about a story. It's in chronological order. Before we look at the next tenses, let's just remember that when we put a negative sentence in the past, we need to use didn't. It's the same for all people. I didn't work yesterday. You didn't work yesterday. He didn't work yesterday. She didn't work yesterday. We didn't work yesterday. They didn't work yesterday. Negative, past simple. In the negative, remember, we are not using the past form of the verb. The affirmation, the positive statement, is I worked. Here it's I didn't work is the negative. We don't use the ed form. The past is in the auxiliary. Did, which is the past of do. And in the question also, we need to use did you work? We need to use the auxiliary. This is a revision. Remember, we already saw this in the other levels. So this is a summary of the past simple. Now let's look at one of the other tenses. The other tense that we saw was this one here, the past continuous. The past continuous. So let's copy that over there. Now let's delete this because I don't need that anymore. Let's move that out the way for a bit and let's just use it here. So the past continuous, we use the past continuous for actions in progress. In progress in the past, or longer actions interrupted by shorter actions in the past simple. So often we use this tense combined with the past simple that we just saw. Here's an example of the past continuous. At 1 p.m. yesterday, I was working. I was working. This is unlike the past simple because in this tense, this is time. This line represents time. And yesterday here, this is yesterday at 1 p.m. This is 1 p.m. 1 p.m. Right there on that timeline. This line represents time. And this point represents 1 p.m. So this is the time before 1 p.m. here, and this is the time after 1 p.m. So if I can't find my drawing, well, I'll just have to draw with this, I think, because I can't find the boxes anywhere. Where are they? I thought there were some drawing tools here. So yeah, I'll have to do it like this. So this, when we say I was working, It's not very well done because I can't find the drawing tools to draw boxes. Maybe it's in here. No, what's that? Well, let's draw it like this. Maybe that's better. Not very good drawing, but basically this is a period of time. So when I say I was working, it means, you know, I started before and I finished after. So that's when we say I was working. When we say I was working at 1 p.m, it means it was in the middle of me working. I started before and I finished after. Let's put that there. Sorry about this, drawing is very bad, but I can't find the drawing tools in this program. There should be something to draw a box, but I can't find it. It seems to have disappeared. So let's continue. Here's another example. This is probably a more common use of the past continuous. While I was driving to work, I saw an accident. Let's erase all this, I think. So here in this sentence, while I was driving to work, let's erase this and erase this, and let's erase that there. So while I was driving to work, I saw an accident. Here we're using two tenses, and this is a more common use of the, I just realized that you can't see all of that there. Sorry about that. I need to keep my eye on the monitor. Let's just move that over there so that you can see it. Let's move that there. You couldn't see the beginning. Sorry about that. While I was driving to work this morning, I saw an accident. So here we're using two tenses because what we have here is a long activity, an activity that started here. This is time, this line is time. It started here and it finished here. It doesn't matter what time, it's yesterday. From 8, this is 8 a.m. and this is 9 a.m. Let's put a little box there. 8 a.m. and this is 9 a.m. So I was driving for 1 hour. I was driving for 1 hour. And we can put that there, and we can put this here. I was driving. Oh, I was driving. Let's put that there. So I was driving between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. and in the middle, let's say at 8:30, right here in the middle of this activity, I saw an accident. I saw an accident. I saw an accident. Let's move that there. So, the long activity, when you use these two tenses together, you use the long activity, you put the long activity, in this case the driving the car, in the past continuous, and you put the short activity, the activity that interrupted the long activity, this activity you need to put in the past simple. So when I was driving to work, I saw an accident. Let me just check the chat for a minute. I always need to keep my eye on the chat and also on this monitor to see if everybody can see the screen. Sometimes I forget. So this is the main this is one of the main uses of the past continuous for a long activity. Also, we use the past continuous to set the scene of a story. If we're going to tell a story or a narrative, maybe we could start, when I left the house, it was raining. This is like in the background. When I left the house, it was raining. I walked to work and there I had a cup of coffee. You know, I set the scene for when I was walking to work. Very bad story, but it's just something that I made up in that moment. So remember, the past continuous is formed with the subject, the past form of the verb be, was or were, then the verb with ing. And the negative, so if it's a you, we need to say you were working. And if it's a he, we say he was. Only two forms of the verb be in the past, was and were. And the negative is formed with wasn't or weren't, plus a verb with ing. And in the question, you know, we need to put the verb be first and the subject second. We reverse the order. Were you working yesterday? Hi, Jair, how are you? And hi, Fernie. Good. So that today then we've looked again at two tenses. Now let's look at the past perfect. The past perfect, the other tense. Let's see if we can move this up here and put this here and look at the past perfect. So that this is the new tense. The new tense that we saw last week. Let's hope you can see that okay right now. Yeah, I think you can see it okay there. I hope the text isn't too small if you're watching this on a cell phone. Last week I had some complaints about the text size. I'm on a computer, so here looks okay. But maybe on the cell phone, I'll try and make it a bit bigger, but there's not a lot of space on here, and I need to keep it over there, otherwise it can't be seen. Okay, I think you can see that. So this is the new tense, and this tense is used for something that happened before the main event. We use the past perfect to talk about an earlier past, events which happened before the main event. What that means is if I'm telling you something, a story or something that happened in the past, sometimes I need to go backwards. I need to go to an earlier time. When I go to an earlier time, I need to change the tense to the past perfect. I can't use the past because if I'm telling you, for example, here, when I arrived, he had already left. The thing is here that this when I arrived sets the time in the past. It doesn't matter when it was, it doesn't matter the time. The time was when I arrived. You know that it's in the past because the verb is in the past. But the person left before I arrived. So I can't say when I arrived he left, because if I say when I arrived he left, that's using past, and we saw earlier that is for talking about things in chronological order. Down here I've put the chronological order. He left first, past simple, then I arrived. But I don't want to say that if I'm talking to someone. I don't want to say he left and then I arrived. It's not correct. It's correct. It's grammatically correct, but it's not the way people speak. The correct is when I arrived, he had already left. Incidentally, this already here is an adverb. It's not necessary, but normally when we have a sentence like this, we would normally say the already. It indicates that this thing happened before I expected it to. It's also correct to say when I arrived, he had left. And additionally, normally this here would be contracted. We would say he'd left or he'd already left. If we use the adverb already, I put it in brackets because, or in parentheses, because it's not necessary. It indicates that it happened before I expected that. I expected him to be there and he wasn't. Another example, here there's a spelling mistake here. I wasn't hungry because I'd already eaten. Already eaten. I wasn't hungry because I'd already eaten. So that again means that I had eaten before. Before. I'd eaten before. That's why I wasn't hungry. This one here is in the past. I wasn't hungry. We know that it's some point in the past because it's in the past. This incidentally is the past of the verb be. Because I'd already eaten. This just tells me that I'd eaten before. If I put it in chronological order, then I say I ate and then I wasn't hungry. I ate and I wasn't hungry. That's it. Good. Any questions? Francisca, I just found your channel. Where are you from? I'm from Mexico. You're from Mexico. I'm from England. Nice to meet you. Okay. So here we got some examples of how we form the past perfect. How do we form the past perfect? The past perfect is formed with the subject, the auxiliary verb have in the past. The past of have we saw earlier is had. And then the past participle. The past participle is the past participle of regular verbs like work that we saw earlier is the same as the past. So, for example, the past of work is worked, and the past participle is worked. It's the same, regular verb, just with ed. But eat is an irregular verb. The past is ate, and the past participle is eaten. So, this is how we form the past perfect. I had eaten. Now, normally, when a native speaker speaks, they are not going to say, I had eaten. They're going to say, I'd eaten, I'd eaten. So you need to listen very carefully, especially with regular verbs. For example, listen to me pronouncing I worked, and the past perfect, I'd worked. Let's listen to my pronunciation of this, because if you don't pay attention, probably they may sound the same. I worked, I'd worked. Again, I worked, I'd worked. I worked, I'd worked. You can hear that the pronunciation of the had is very short. I'd worked is contracted, is reduced. You can't hear it very clearly. It may sound the same. You may not realize even that the speaker is using the past perfect. It may sound like the past, but it isn't. I worked, I'd worked. And maybe that's what makes it difficult to maybe learn this tense, because if you're a person who learns by listening, maybe you don't hear it and you think that it's okay to use the past. Okay, so this is the second time that we've dealt with these tenses. This tense is called the past perfect. So today we looked at the past simple, the past perfect, and the past continuous. So just to summarize that, I've got exactly the same thing that I had last week, combining these two tenses together. We have, let's make this bigger, we can. We have three sentences combining the two tenses, or the two tenses in each one, the three tenses together. In the first sentence, we have, we have when he arrived, they had lunch. In this sentence, we have, first of all, we have the past simple in the first clause, and in the second clause we also have the past simple. It's past simple, which means that those two events took place in chronological order. This is time. First of all, we arrived, and then sorry, that's wrong. Well, I can put that there. Arrived. Let's move that up there. This is the point in time where we arrived, and this is the point where we had lunch. We had lunch after we arrived. So we arrived, then we had lunch. Past simple, past simple. But in number 2, we have when he arrived. It's he, not us, sorry. He arrived. When he arrived, they were having lunch. This time the second tense is in the past continuous. So what that means this time is we can delete this here and put here having lunch. So now this is a long activity. So let's actually move it down there. Let's move that down there. Let's erase that there. Well, I've erased half my line, but I'll join that back up there. So this is the long activity. This means that this activity started here and continued. It was started before, started here and continued all the way up to here afterwards. I arrived in the middle. I arrived in the middle. And finally we have the last sentence, which is when he arrived they had had lunch. Had. Well, the first thing here is that many people get confused with this. They had, and they say, hey, how can you say they had? It doesn't make sense. But remember, in this sentence, the first had is an auxiliary verb that is used in the perfect tenses. And the second had is a main verb which means possession, or in this case it's the activity of eating. And the other thing to remember is that normally people don't say, as I explained earlier, people don't say they had lunch, they say they'd. We use the contraction. So I'll put the contractions in here and here because that's a more natural way of speaking. So in this sentence, again we've got the time, and they arrived here at this point, but they actually had lunch before. So here in this sentence, he arrived, I'm actually going backwards in time, The first one, I'm going forwards. The first one here is in chronological order. He arrived and then I had lunch. But this one, he arrived, they'd had lunch, means they'd had lunch before. They had lunch before. Let's make that blue too. Okay, so basically this is the second time that I've been through this today. I tried to go through it a bit more slowly. The good thing about the live classes is from the chat I can see if people can understand me or not. It's always difficult on YouTube because I don't get any interaction, only through the chat. So I don't know if people understand what I'm talking about. But in the last class, it appeared that really very few people understood because they didn't get the answers correct to the questions. So that's why I've tried to explain it all again, the same thing, and it's like go into more detail in this class. So if you're watching the recording, of course, you can watch the previous class and then watch this class, and hopefully then you'll understand the use of these three tenses. But let's check to see how well people have understood these three tenses, because here I have some questions, I think. Yeah, let's start with these ones. So what we need to do, can you repeat the last sentence using the contraction? The last sentence using the contraction, which sentence? Because I've lost that page. This one here. Here, I think this is what you mean here. When he arrived, they'd had lunch. When he arrived, they'd had lunch. Very short, the contraction here. They'd. When he arrived, they'd had lunch. So you probably, again, you wouldn't hear that. Let's continue with the questions. Let's continue with the questions. Here, make sure everybody can see this in the monitor. Let's make that bigger. So this is quite difficult, these questions. Quite difficult. What we got to do, let's separate them so that you can see clearly. So we're going to start with number one here. Let's try and make it a bit bigger because sometimes people are on their cell phone. Here in these sentences we have some verbs. Here are the verbs. The first space here is, the first verb is wait. The second verb is call. And the third verb is had. So, put the verbs into the correct tense. Past simple, past continuous, or past perfect. Can anybody write the answers? Let me just get a drink of water. Can anybody in the chat write the answer to this question? Put the verbs into the correct tense. Put the verbs into the correct tense. Anybody? Have we got any answers? If we don't, I'll have to write the answer myself. Jair says, I waited. No, the first one is a long activity. It's a long activity. Yeah, Viviana's got it. Baltasar makes a very common mistake because he forgot to put the verb be. But Blanca has the correct answer. The correct answer is was waiting. The correct answer is I was waiting for my friend. It's a long activity. I was waiting for my friend at the restaurant last week when she... Now this is a short activity. The long activity is was waiting. This is the long activity. Now this long activity is interrupted by a short activity. You can't see clearly. Why not, Liz? Make sure, here on my monitor I can see clearly. I don't know why you can't see clearly. Maybe your internet connection is slow and it's downgraded the quality, because here, right here, it's okay. My friend Blanca, very good. At least this week we have some correct answers. We need to put that verb in the past. It's a regular verb. It's the past simple. Very good. Because the waiting is a long activity and it was interrupted by a short activity. The call, the phone call. When I was waiting for my friend at the restaurant last week when she called to say she... I think maybe I should... Well, yeah, okay. I actually missed the verb here. I missed the verb here. This is going to be a bit difficult. So she called to say that she... Come, put the verb in the correct tense. Maybe this is a little bit difficult, this one. Here, no, it's not had and come, and it's not come. Here we want to talk about past ability. I'm not sure if we dealt with that. I think we did do that in level A2. If nobody knows the answer, in the present would be could come. But here we need this in the past simple. What is the past simple of could come? She didn't come, Javier has put. That is incorrect. Came. No, the past of can is could. And this is actually negative. So we need to say she couldn't come. She called to say she couldn't come. Maybe that was a bit unfair, that question, because I'm not sure if I explained that. Elizabeth has got it anyway. Couldn't come because her car, here I put had, but of course this should be in the base form have. Put the verb have in the correct tense. She called me to say she couldn't come. The reason is that her car had a puncture, but it had a puncture obviously before she called. So what tense do we need to use? Her car had a puncture. Very good, Jordan. And actually Jordan did very well because he actually used the contraction, which is very good because we can contract that too. Her car had had a puncture. That's probably the way a native speaker would speak. It's not have had, it's had had. Had had. But her car had a puncture. So finally we got the correct answer, and I think we did a lot better than last week. I was waiting for my friend at the restaurant last week when she called to say that she couldn't come because her car had had a puncture. Listen carefully to the pronunciation of this. I'm going to repeat it again. I was waiting for my friend at the restaurant last week when she called to say that she couldn't come because her car had had a puncture. Number 2. I was late. When I arrived, the meeting finished and everybody left. Actually, sorry, this verb here is in the past. It should be in the present. All the verbs should be in the base. You need to put them in the correct tense. Can anybody just give me the correct answer? Has anybody been paying attention to what I've been saying? Can anybody write? It'd be really nice if somebody actually wrote the correct answer. Well, we've got the correct answer from number 1 from quite a few people: Alvaro, Miguel, Viviana, Javier and Baltazar. Very good. Here we just need to put this verb in the simple past, and the simple past of arrive is arrived because it is a regular verb. When I arrived, sorry, here I missed a word. There should be a preposition at. When I arrived at the meeting. So who can tell me the next one? Who can tell me the next one? Finished, no, because the meeting finished before I arrived. KLT, I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation. Had finished, very good. We need to put that one in the past perfect because the meeting finished before I arrived. The meeting, and we can contract it. So we're going to say it finished. It finished. Let's put this in red. So the meeting finished before I arrived. The meeting finished and then I arrived. So I need to say I was late. When I arrived at the the meeting had finished. Sorry, I made a mistake here. I shouldn't have put the at in there. When I arrived at the meeting. Sorry, actually, there is a mistake here. Yeah, I do need the at. Sorry, I forgot I need another subject. Sorry. When I arrived at the meeting, This is wrong. I need to put here, sorry, the subject. It had finished. It had finished. Because this is a new clause, so I need another subject. Sorry about that. When I arrived at the meeting, it had finished. When I arrived at the meeting, it had finished. This is the correct. When I arrived at the meeting, it had finished, and everybody had left. Well, almost correct, Viviana. You've got the correct tense. Blanca has got it, and Coyote, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correct. Where are you from, Coyote? Coyote? Everybody had left is the correct answer here. Everybody had left. Everybody had left. So again, we're using the contraction here because they left. The meeting finished and they left before I arrived. So I was late. When I arrived at the meeting, it had finished and everybody had left. I was late. When I arrived at the meeting, it had finished and everybody had left. Good. Number 3, from Morocco. First time I've had somebody from Morocco. Nice to meet you. Okay, let's have a look. Number 3. I run for the bus, but it already left. It already leave. And the Coyote again. No, sorry, Viviana. This one is going to be in the simple past. Sorry, the simple past. Ran. I ran for the bus. The past of run is ran. It's an irregular verb. It's an irregular verb. I ran for the bus and it had already left. Very good. The bus left before I arrived. It had already left. The bus left before I arrived. Or before I ran for it. So let's put number 4. Can you still see these okay? Yeah, I think so. Let's move this up. When he woke it, I think I've done this, work it to rain and he leave his umbrella at home. Here I think I need when he, this is a mistake here, sorry, let me correct this. This shouldn't be here. When he woke, it began to rain and when he was walking, very good, Javier. Yeah, this is the long activity. So this week is much better people actually getting the correct answers. Congratulations. Last week, nobody had the correct answers. I need to move that down. I think I'll actually delete the ones we've done here, sorry, because they just get in the way. When he was walking to work, I hope this is big enough. I know sometimes it's difficult on the cell phone, but there's a limited amount of space. When he, if I make it too big, that looks okay, I think you can still see that. When he was walking to work, it began, who said that? Miguel, very good, and also Viviana, and also Javier. So yeah, very good. This is the short activity. So we need to say began. It began. It began to rain and he had left. Yeah, because obviously he left his umbrella at home before it began to rain. He left his home before he began walking. So we can say, we can use the contraction again, he left his umbrella at home. When he was walking to work, he left. Let me read this with the contractions. When he was walking to work, I did miss something here. I should have put here to work, sorry, I'm making a lot of mistakes with these. When he was walking to work, it began to rain and he'd left his umbrella at home. Maybe we should add there. So he got wet. And this last verb here is in the past simple because it happened at the same time that it started to rain, not before, like the umbrella. Finally, let's do the last one, I think, and then probably going to finish the class. So this, let me check that I haven't made any more mistakes with these questions. When I remember that. I think that's number 6. So we're just doing number 5 now. When driving, the verb here is driving. Actually should be, I need to put these in the base form. So it should be drive. And has anybody got the answer? Yeah, I was driving. This is the long activity. When I was driving to work, I remembered that I had forgotten. Very good. So today is a very successful because people actually understand, which is much better than last week because it seemed like nobody understood. So I'm very pleased. I had forgotten, because I forgot before I left the house. And I think we've just about got time for the last one. The concert finish when we... Well, this one actually, looking at it, I've written this question, but I've just realized that it's completely ambiguous because the idea here was that you say the concert had finished when we arrived, but actually this last one, is completely ambiguous because we could say the concert was finishing when we arrived, the concert finished when we arrived, or the concert had finished when we arrived. There are 3 possible answers, so it's a very badly written question by me. I would have to add something else to it. But maybe it's a good way to end the class because the 3 possible answers have 3 different meanings. If I say the concert finished when we arrived, that means we arrived and then it finished. If I say the concert was finishing when we arrived, that means it was in the process of finishing when we arrived. And if I say the concert had finished when we arrived, it means it finished before I arrived. And unfortunately, today I did have another subject, which was adjectives of personalities. No, Jair, it's not a question of which sounds better. It's a question of different meanings. It depends what the meaning is. If you arrived before the concert finished, then you say when I arrived, then the concert finished. The concert finished when I arrived. It finished at the same time or just a little bit after. But if you say the concert had finished when I arrived, it means it finished before. So, okay, it's time. I didn't have time to do the adjectives of personality, so they'll be in the next class. I'll start the next class with them. Congratulations on all the correct answers. Thank you for watching my video. And I hope to see you the next live class, I think, on Thursday. Have a good day. Goodbye.